Hello everyone and welcome to my review of the Fw190-A Anton for DCS World. And so I'd like to do some more of these module reviews going forward, and this one seemed like a good pick and it has been requested. One thing just to get out in the open before we continue is that I did not purchase this module. This module was purchased for me by Judas, who is a long-time supporter of the channel, and he has requested that I do a review of the module after doing a review of the Horido campaign, which I've recently wrapped up. Now, to the best of my knowledge, Judas has no affiliation with ED or the module maker. This is just his own insanity buying me this. But just wanted to get that out there. I did not pay my own money for this module, but all opinions are still my own. I will be 100% honest here, but just to let you all know that. So first off, I just wanted to talk about how close this was to a reproduction of the real aircraft. It is a little unusual here that we do have two 190 variants in DCS World. We have the Dora and the Anton. This review is specifically looking at the Anton variant, and as a reproduction it is really good. Graphically it looks fantastic inside and out, really good textures inside the cockpit, really good textures outside. There's a nice selection of liveries. The damage model looks amazing when you take a beating, and you will be taking a beating in the Anton. You do see all sorts of nice effects. You can see through the wing, see wing spars inside the wing. Really nice effects there. Handling wise, it really does feel like you're handling a World War II plane, particularly one with a lot of power in the engine. You really do feel that on takeoff, especially. That propeller torque is real and it is challenging, and I do still bin this a lot on takeoff. That is historically accurate. A lot of these were lost on takeoff, especially with inexperienced pilots. All of the little switches work, everything seems functional. I'm not sure if the radio detection finder is functional. It certainly works in IL-2 a lot differently from how it works here. I've never managed to get that to work in DCS. But we do now have bomb fuses in DCS, so the bomb fusing selection works fantastically. The only part from a simulation perspective that I'd say this model falls down on is the canopy reflections are really weird and really bright, especially in the morning and the evening. If you're looking in the opposite direction to the sun, you just can't see anything out that canopy. It is just this nearly opaque material with the white reflection that comes off there. Now, they have adjusted that. This is a recent issue, as in it cropped up a few months ago. They have adjusted it and made it maybe a little bit better, but it's still really awful, and certainly compared to some of the other World War II canopies, it is just awful to look at. It's fine during the middle of the day. You tend not to notice it as much because, well, the sun's up above you, and so the bad direction would be looking below you, which your plane generally isn't. But certainly during the evening, it is really immersion breaking, it is really distracting, and it makes dogfighting incredibly difficult, because generally you can't see who you're looking at. Now, for how this feels to actually fly and play in-game, I wanted to break this review into two halves here. And first I'm going to look at the single-player aspect, and then I'm going to look at how this feels on multiplayer servers. So single-player wise, it is a bit of a mixed bag. Unfortunately right now there is only one 190 Anton paid campaign that you can get in DCS World. And the default free campaign that comes with it is just a collection of random mishmash training missions more than anything else. Now, the Horido campaign, that one campaign that this does have, is an excellent campaign. I had a huge amount of fun with that. It's by Reflected, who always do great work, and this is no different. So you can have a huge amount of fun with that. but otherwise you're going to be relying on user files or your own user-made maps if you want to get a lot of single-player use out of this module. And that is a pretty high bar to clear, especially given that this has all of the same problems that general World War II DCS has, that you need to buy a campaign map on top of all of that, and you need the asset pack to get into really Herido or anything else you're wanting to do in single player. And unfortunately that isn't any better with the Dora, the other 190 module that we have, which has no paid for campaigns available even after all of this time. So it is a bit of a hard recommendation there to get this for single player use. Certainly I really enjoyed the Herido campaign, and certainly if you've already got the World War II asset pack and you've already got the channel map, which is the one that's used for Herido, then yes, certainly picking up the Anton in a sale purely for the Herido campaign might be something to look into, but it is pretty pricey just for that and that alone. Multiplayer, again, is kind of a mixed bag. Now, you would certainly expect this to really have its best time in World War II era maps, World War II era servers. That's not strictly true. You can certainly take it out on the World War II era servers in Wolfpack and Overlord at time of recording. This works relatively well in both of those. Nice thing about taking this out in Overlord is that you do very often get slightly forward spawns, which is really nice, reducing your flight time by a fair amount. And on the Overlord server, it does have a kind of pseudo hot start where you start hot but without fuel, so your engine does automatically cut out and you have to refuel, but the engine is at least hot. There is no way in DCS right now for mission makers to start engines hot, and so that is a problem with our radial engines. The Anton and the P47 both have to warm their engines up before taking off, and that takes quite a while. Depending on settings and the temperature, it can take anywhere between 5 and 15 minutes of just sitting on the ground. So nicely in Overlord you can kind of skip that. Really, really nice feature. In Wolfpack you can just do a hot start, which skips it. And so that is pretty nice at making that a lot more usable. The problem in those World War II settings, though, is the Anton really struggles. Our World War II setting in DCS is very much late 1944, going on to 1945. That is the era that all of the modules are in there, and at that stage in the war, the 190 Anton was just really struggling. The 190 Anton, particularly this A8 variant, is really good, really tough little plane, and definitely had its heyday earlier in the war, but at this point in the war it just struggles. You'll be going up against Spitfires, which can just turn rings around you. Mustangs, which if flown well are generally a little bit better in most regards. You can hold your own against P47s, but that is because the P47's kind of in the same boat as you, as not really being a very manoeuvrable plane there. And what this means is that you are mostly going to need to rely on boom and zoom tactics, or mostly focus on ground attack. And there, the little bit of the issue is that we do have the A8 variant, which is perfectly capable of ground attack, but isn't as specialised as some of the other 190 Anton variants, which have a heavier bomb load or more variety there. So you can certainly do ground attack, and I certainly have had a lot of fun doing ground attack in the Anton. Particularly, it has an excellent fusing system. The German fuses, when you put them on level bombing with delay, They work really, really well. They arm incredibly quickly, and they give you a good few seconds to get away from the target, making accurate bomb dropping really, really nice and rewarding. The plane also does really, really well at intercepting those big American bomber formations. It has enough armor and staying power to be able to really tank hits against the B-17's return fire, which is really, really nice. Gives you a little bit more flexibility there. You're not completely vulnerable. You can take several hits into the engine and keep on trucking. And even when your engine does start to take serious damage, you can still normally limp it back home. And then on top of that, it has really, really good forward firepower. Anything that you do manage to catch off your nose is not going to be coming home. Even big B-17s, you can easily set major fires on with just a simple short pass. And that means that you can take out several bombers in one pass, which is really, really fun, really, really rewarding. It's just an issue when you're going against fighters. Unless that fighter is flying in a straight line and not paying attention to you, you're going to struggle to get guns on target. So yeah, in the World War II setting, great bomber, great interceptor, not a great fighter. Then the weird one is taking this out in more modern servers, where it actually does really well, and honestly the most fun I've had in the Anton has been on the contention server, and this is because it is actually really well suited to fill in its own little niche role on that server. We do have a problem on that server that it does not have hot start of any kind, so it does take quite a while to get the engine started, which does make the other German aircraft a little bit more appealing to just get started quickly and get off the ground. But it does come with all sorts of its own advantages on contention. Really good example there is it is hidden on EWR, and that really helps level the playing field a bit. You obviously can't compete against modern fighter jets or even Cold War era fighter jets in this. They have missiles, they have radar guided aiming cursors on their guns. They have far more thruster weight, far more speed. They're just going to outperform you in every way. But if they don't know you're there, you can slip by them really, really nicely. This makes the Anton really good at helicopter hunting. If you know helicopters are in an area, or if you've got, say, a JTAC on who is able to point you in the correct general direction, the Anton is fantastic. It can sneak up on them. They don't know you're coming because just like you don't get EWR on them, they don't get EWR on you. So although very many of these aircraft, these helicopters can take you out quite quickly if they know you're there, you can sneak up on them, which is really, really nice. And given that you've got so much in the way of forward firepower, you can do a huge amount of damage. Even against big tanky aircraft, the Anton can just take out most helicopters in a single burst, which is really, really nice, really, really fun. And it even holds its own pretty well against a lot of the more modern planes. I've certainly had some good dogfights versus A-10s in this, where you're actually pretty well matched up, and even occasionally you might get lucky against a fast-moving jet. If they decide to turn with you, they're going to be in for a bad time, and it's very easy for them to lose track of you. On top of that, the Anton is really, really sturdy. This is historically accurate, is a radial engine aircraft, which means that it is far less likely to go down from a single hit. And this includes managing to take hits from the like of man-pads, even sidewinders. You can actually take a hit and sometimes make it back to base. Very often it does a huge amount of damage and you're in a bad way, but you can kind of hold in there, which is really nice and really fun. Plus, once again, that forward firepower means that if you do happen to get guns on a target, even something like an A10 is not going to be coming off the best out of that engagement. And then on top of that, we do have all of the other advantages that we do have the FAC system on contention, which allows you to call in artillery strikes and mark targets, which is really, really good fun to be able to do. You do have your really accurate bombing, which you can use for fantastic effect at taking out all sorts of ground targets, including doing a huge amount of damage to HQs. You can take down the low-level HQs with just one of these bombs, and a pair of you can do a huge amount of damage even to high-level HQs. And it's also great for doing things like harassing FARPs and clearing out hostile FARPs. So again, you've got all of that ammunition that you can just strafe the lightly armoured targets, and you can drop these large bombs on the heavier stuff. So yeah, weirdly, I enjoy taking this out on contention server more than I enjoyed taking it out on World War II servers. It is a weird niche aircraft, but it has its own role and is a huge amount of fun. There is something to be said about flying out in the underdog, and this is definitely an underdog. Everything you do feels that bit more meaningful when you're managing to achieve it in an old piston-powered World War II plane, even though you're going up against these more modern ones. So yeah, that is my review. Yeah, bit of a mixed bag. This is definitely not a module for everyone. You are not going to be competitive in dogfights in the World War II setting. You're not going to be competitive that much in a modern setting. You don't have that many options for single-player activities. You don't have a quick startup, which can put you at a major disadvantage against some of the contemporaries. But on the other hand, it is this really unique plane. It can take a huge amount of beating and keep on going. It can put out a huge amount of firepower. It can drop a 500 kilogram bomb with incredible accuracy, very often landing it on top of the vehicle that you're wanting to destroy. And on the right server, it is amazing, amazing amounts of fun. Now, I was certainly skeptical about this one at first, but it has become my favourite World War II German module that we have, and it's right up there with the P-47 in terms of best World War II modules for me. I love it, and I love the P-47 pretty much for the same reasons. They're these big, heavy, durable ground attack aircraft, which I really enjoy. And nicely right now, with the contention server's popularity and with all of the little bits and pieces, it has this really cool unique role, essentially as a forward artillery observer that is hidden on EWR and can do all sorts of sneaky things, helping with the front line to actually quite a considerable degree. So yeah, I very, very much enjoyed this module, and I would certainly recommend it to people who are of the same kind of mindset, who don't mind taking out something that is maybe not really in the meta for best aircraft, but something a bit different, something a bit fun, something a bit silly, and still something that has clearly had quite a lot of love put into it. So anyway, let me know what you thought of this review, if you thought it was fair. Let me know if you think anything differently about the Anton, and let me know what other modules you would like me to review in the future. Until then, remember to be kind to yourselves and everyone else. Cheers.